All right. Well, good evening and welcome, everyone. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. My name is Amy Selix. I'm one of your hosts tonight, along with Sheila Rupp, and we're really excited to have you all here. These sessions are part of a grassroots effort to help build community and connection within our Space Force spouse community. And these sessions are for you. So as you watch tonight, please let us know if there are any guests or resources you'd like to see in the future. For those of you who are new to these calls, we do record and share our guest segments. You're welcome to have your camera off. You can also change your screen name if you'd like. You can do that by clicking the three dots at the top right hand side of your screen, I believe. Is that right, Sheila? Right hand? We'll go with that. If you're not comfortable coming off mute tonight, no worries at all. Consider using the chat to connect and ask questions instead. Before we introduce tonight's guest, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. You may or may not know, but today is Military Marriage Day. So happy Military Marriage Day to all of us. If you joined us for our February session, you may have participated in their survey. If you're interested in their findings, those results were released today. We're going to drop them in the chat later on. And then lastly, since tonight's topic is kind of focused on education, we want to share some really exciting news with you all. Specifically for our homeschooling families, Five and Thrive recently released their new Thrive Guide. It's the homeschool edition. And I just want to take a quick second to commend our very own Sabrina Dalton for her efforts in leading this invaluable resource for all of our military families. We're really, really proud of you, Sabrina. And then I'll pass it over to Sheila, and she's going to introduce our guests this evening.
Thanks, Amy. We are very excited to be joined by the Thomases tonight. Major General Ed Thomas is the CEO of Air Force Aid Society, and among other things that Air Force Aid Society does for Space Force and Air Force families is provide education resources and support for dependents. So we're excited to have you both with us tonight, and I'll let you take it from here, Ed.
Thanks so much, Sheila. Really appreciate it. Sheila, Amy, thanks very much for having us. And you're hearing me well, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in honor of Military Marriage Night, I invited my military marriage wife with me. We've been married almost 34 years now. We retired out of recruiting, doing Air and Space Force recruiting this last summer, and been here at Air Force Aid about 6 months as of the 19th. So Dinah's here with me tonight, and we've also got Sarah McNulty, who is our education expert. She runs all of our education programs for Air Force Aid, and maybe B. Swan, our Director of Ops, joining us. Sarah, are you there with us?
I am. Thank you for having us. I'm excited to spread the word and excited that you guys invited us to join this evening. So thank you. And I believe B is waiting to get in. I just got a quick message from her.
Okay, fantastic. Hey, thanks, Sarah. Sarah's got a wealth of experience, and she is clearly my phone a friend tonight. So I've learned everything I can about our various programs. I've got the big picture on things, but when it comes to any hard questions, I'm going to immediately be a wimp.
And you brought your wife and phone friend.
Yes, so I'm ready to deflect and to pivot if I need to on questions. But let me just give you a little bit of a kind of a quick overview first of kind of how I see things on Air Force Aid. Kind of give you 2 minutes or so before we sort of jump into the education specific parts. So Air Force Aid has been around for 82 years. It was started really on the eve of World War II. Hap Arnold, the 5-star senior airman during World War II, was on Nag's Head with several of the senior Army Air Corps leaders at the time. And they said, hey, war's coming. We're going to need an organization like Army Emergency Relief that's going to help take care of our folks after the war specifically. So we really need to be ready. So that's how Air Force Aid began. And as the Air Force grew into its own service, Navy Marine Corps Relief did what it did. Army Emergency Relief continued its job. And then the Air Force Aid Society stood up to be really the third of the Title X military welfare societies or organizations. And then, of course, December the 19th, December the 20th, 19, yeah, December 20th, 19. I was in the Andrews Air Force Base hangar when President Trump signed the NDAA creating the Space Force. And then almost immediately, the Air Force Aid Society really genuinely became the Air and Space Force Aid Society. While we haven't changed the name, and that was based on General Raymond's counsel at the time saying, don't change the name, don't confuse people right now. But we are still working on our branding and the things that we do to make sure and communicate. We are the Aid Society for the Air Force and the Space Force, and that we are serving all of those folks. And we're serious about making sure that we're meeting the needs that we need to of our service members and their families. I met with Tony Haught, the S1, this week. He's the new kind of services guy for the Space Force. He's been on the job probably 2 or 3 months, and talked to him about how we better meet the needs of Space Force families, and then maybe how we can even use the Space Force as a smaller service to pilot programs and get feedback from the Space Force and figure out the things that we can do to best meet Space Force needs. The week before, I met with Kate Kelly, the S1, to talk to her about some of the same issues. And then, heck, most of the Space Force leadership are just friends of ours. Diane and I were interns with Salty and Jennifer, the Saltzmans, when we were captains. We've been friends with them for years. Saw General Whiting last week at that same ceremony I was talking about. So we are all in to take care of the Space Force. So if you ever see anything that you go, we don't feel like Air Force Aid is thinking about us or meeting our needs or understanding this, particularly if there's unique requirements for Space Force families, we really want to know. Now, as I came into this job, I had some pretty clear impressions about some different areas, but knowing that Air Force Aid had been a super strong organization for decades and decades, but there's a few things that we know we have to do. So I'm just going to kind of give you the quick, broad brush of where we're trying to go today. The first one is strengthening our own team, because we've had a lot of turnover over the past few years. It's a family kind of organization. We've had people like B that's with us now that have been, B, how long have you been with Air Force Aid now?
13 years, sir.
13 years. B's been our director of ops for 13 years. Lisa Donaldson's been with us for like 34 years. So we still have some folks that have tons of corporate memory, but we've had a lot of staff turnover. So we're working on building up our own team so that we're ready to really take care of others. The second thing is we're working to reconnect with the Air Force and the Space Force, because back around 2021, there was a general counsel ruling that said basically military family readiness center staff could no longer do all the things they did before. They couldn't write checks specifically. That was really the big thing, because they had check writing ability. So somebody could come in with a need. The first sergeant, a senior NCO could kind of put their arms around them, bring them in, or they could just walk into the family support center or the military family readiness center and say, hey, I need help, I need counseling. And they could literally walk out with a check right then and there. General counsel said, no more, can't do that anymore. So no problem, but it put us in a position to have to centralize everything here in Washington, D.C. There's advantages to that. We can be reached 24 hours a day by anybody, online or via a telephone call. The disadvantage to it is we've lost that personal human touch at the bases. So as we work to increase our communication through things like we're doing tonight with candid conversations with first sergeants, with commanders, with military family readiness centers, we're also working to kind of swing the pendulum back a little bit, so we still have Air Force Aid officers or Air Force Aid ambassadors in those military family readiness centers as that human face at each of the bases. And we're working through those policy issues right now. So reconnecting is a really big issue with us. People need to know who we are, and they need to know we're here to serve them. That's the only reason we exist. And then the other issue, the third one, is our funding has kind of fallen off a cliff the last few years. The key mechanism that for decades and decades that funded Air Force Aid was our internal service fund drive. So just like the combined federal campaign, the Air Force Assistance Fund would raise funds every year, and we didn't really have to do a lot of external fundraising. You had the charity gala and you had the AFAF, Air Force Assistance Fund, and that pretty well took care of the needs that we had to be able to go out and do the the program expenses taken care of airmen, guardians, and their families. But just to give you a quick point of comparison, in just a few short years ago, the Air Force Assistance Fund was making close to $8 million a year, and we would get 60% of that. So you take about $5 million, and it goes a long way to be able to do our primary missions of emergency travel, emergency assistance, of education, grants, scholarships, loans, and then community support. So that was 60% of $8 million. This year, we had the lowest in the history of the Department of the Air Force at a 2.42 participation rate among service members. And we raised about $1.7 million. And of that 1.7 million, we shared with the affiliate organizations, the retirement community. So we ended up with 26% of 1.7 million. So instead of $5+ million, we're at $422,000. So we've got a serious funding gap that we're working to get after. And so one of the ways we're doing that is through a corporate fundraising program. We're really working hard with the Boeings and the Lockheeds and the Raytheons and the SpaceX and X's and the ULAs, all of those organizations, to try to make sure we can take care of our force. Okay, so that's kind of the big strategic picture. 3 missions, 3 main missions: emergency assistance, community support, and education. We do disaster relief as well, and then 3 real priorities: strengthen our own team, reconnecting with the force and at the base level particularly, and then building a credible corporate fundraising campaign so we can do the things that we need to do. So with all that, if Sheila, if you can, or Amy, whoever has the slides is driving, if you can just bring up the education slides, I'm going to drill into those pretty quickly, and then we can just open it up to questions. So as those come up, we basically have a couple different areas we're going to show you. Primarily, we're going to talk about full-time student scholarships, grants, and then we're going to talk about part-time options. And there are so many opportunities here, and multiple ones we're not fully capitalizing on yet. And so if we can get y'all's help to get the word out, we really want to help more people. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so if you look at our education programs, there's 3 key points on this slide. The Hap Arnold grant, that really is what we would call the centerpiece of our education programs, because we use this to intake a lot of different folks that are coming and applying for help through the FAFSA process. So it's a needs-based scholarship, but we have a large percentage of our people that get qualified for these. If they can come through the FAFSA process, we've increased the amounts from like $500 to $2,000. This year, the minimum's $2,000, and it's up to $5,000. So they are much more significant scholarships than we've had in the past. And we've got about $3.6 million worth of scholarships that we're trying to give out to Air Force and Space Force families. This is for dependents, and so that can be a child that's going off to school after you've served for many years, and while our pay is fair, it's not enough to pay for multiple kids to go for full-time tuition, and so this really helps with that. But $3.6 million in scholarships for children, and then spouses who want to go to school full-time. This is a great opportunity. And then, as a sort of a subset of this, is our merit and our grit scholarships. This is not needs-based. We pull them through this first Hap Arnold grant avenue, but these aren't needs-based. So we've got about $200,000 that we're given in these approximately $5,000 scholarships. So this is another opportunity for college students and spouses to be able to compete. And then finally, this is a smaller issue, but it's a helpful in that for those that need to be able to pay for extra educational expenses, there's an interest-free, zero-interest loan of $1,000 we can do on top of that if they apply for it. Okay, we'll go through one more slide and then I'll open up for questions. Okay, so here's our other additional educational programs. We have one Columbia Southern University scholarship a year. This is like a $40,000 scholarship. We just gave it to a spouse in South Carolina. Fantastic opportunity to get all your tuition and everything paid. Columbia Southern's been very generous on this one. And then we have the B. Arnold spouse tuition program. So this is the answer to people who don't have time to go to school full time. They're raising kids, they're working a part-time job, they're doing whatever else, they're PCSing in the process. And so we've got about $250,000 dedicated to these kind of scholarships. And it can be anything from part-time education, where they're going, let's say they're taking 3 or 6 or however many hours, 9 hours a semester, or it can be going for spouse certifications. And almost every one of these that have applied has gotten approved. So I need to let you know there's a lot of opportunity out here, and a lot of unused potential. So I'd really love y'all to get the word out, whether they're trying to get, and Sarah could go into more detail in a minute, but whether they're trying to get a certification, a license, something that's going to help them be transportable with their skills, to be able to in their household earnings, or to go back and go to school part-time. Fantastic opportunity. And then the other thing that we've done to support this is an education childcare grant. So anybody who gets one of these scholarships, we're also sending a note out and going, there's a grant available. So when you're trying to go to school and you need childcare, it's Sarah, is it $1,000 on these grants? Remind me the amount, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our spouses who are pursuing full-time undergraduate, we've actually bumped the award up to $1,500.
That's right.
And for our B. Arnold part-time, or pursuing a shorter term certification, we're at $750 for those spouses.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So it may not be one-stop shopping for everything, but it's pretty close. If somebody really wants to go back to school, they want certifications, we want to help them do that, because that's our job, and to be able to add to the quality of life and make military life manageable. And then we want to help them with childcare along the way, because we know that if they've got children, especially young children, that's going to be part of it. Okay, and then just hit the next slide, and I think really that kind of wraps us up on the education pieces. Before we jump into questions, Sarah or B, what did I miss there, and what else would you have told this group that I didn't hit on?
You definitely got the highlights, hit all those points. I think opening up to questions for sure is the great thing. One question we almost always get concerning the B. Arnold program is, well, what certifications are eligible? I will say, like General Thomas said, almost any certification is eligible. We are really looking to help our spouses, especially as they're PCSing and moving all over the place, continue to work and pursue their career opportunities. So anything from a real estate license to medical coding and billing, vet tech, dental assistant, nursing assistant, digital photography, IT skills, leadership, social media marketing. I mean, honestly, we just want to help our spouses pursue and continue to be able to pursue their educational goals, as well as their goals for job retainment. So we are very open to considering most certifications. And if there's any questions, shoot us an email, shoot us a phone call, and we can walk through it one-on-one as well.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So while our overall mission is to be there when guardians, airmen, and their families need us most, we also have a big piece of just quality of life, of, again, making military life enjoyable, livable, doable, and the ways that we can come alongside our military families and help them and provide something like this is what we want to be doing. But the exposure, getting the word out, and people understanding these programs are here, I could almost venture to say that 9 out of 10 spouses probably have no idea. And we've got to do a better job. We're working that issue. Amy and Sheila have personally been super helpful in those areas. Are continuing to work with us to try to get the word out on things, but we could really use your help on that. Okay, B, anything on your end?
Yeah, just adding into, sir, it looks like you've covered quite a bit there. Just wanted to share that the merit and grit is only for incoming freshmen.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, going from high school to, you know, stepping into college. So incoming freshmen are able to apply if they meet the for the merit, a 4.0 GPA or higher, where the grit is, hey, they worked their tails off, didn't quite hit the 4.0, but hey, they had the will and the power to keep going. And all they would need is a recommendation from one of their teachers to submit um, with their application or their video, and that will work for us.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. When we think about grit, there could be some student who their grade point average wasn't great, but they've shown they can do it. They've got the tenacity. They've been working 20 hours a week all through school, doing other things, sports, whatever. And we take all of that into account and want to be able to reward those folks and help them out. Okay. Dinah, anything?
One of the things that I really appreciate with the Air Force Aid Society that I think so many people don't know is when he was talking about the emergencies. Somebody's engine drops out and they end up with a big bill. It's just still amazing to me that we will pay for that, but people don't know, and so if they don't know, then we can't pay for it. So it's just a wonderful thing to put that in the back of your head as you talk to people or you hear somebody having an issue, like, oh, have you thought about the Air Force Aid Society? Because we really want to help. So
my UK counterpart's a good friend of mine that we went to school in London together from our war college, Air Vice Marshal Chris Elliott, and she runs the RAF Benevolence Fund, which is us, in the UK. And she likes to say, we're not about the mad, the bad, or the sad. Life happens and we need to be there for our folks. And, we're not St. Jude's. We're not, curing cancer or doing those other things. We're about helping folks when they need help with education. We're about helping them then when they're a young airman and they don't have that cushion yet and they lose their transmission, they lose their engine. A family member dies and they're trying to get home. And in many cases, just don't necessarily have that financial stability yet to really be able to get there. And in other cases, it's because, of youth or immaturity and they mismanage their money. And we want to come along with our folks on base and help them, get them in a better spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Back over to you guys for questions. Anything. We're wide open.
Ed and Dina, we actually have one of our spouses who received a scholarship from you who's on tonight and is willing to share her story. I'm sorry, my dog is losing his mind in the background. But Anna, if you're on and you're willing to still share, we would love to hear from you.
Sure. Yeah, I just graduated with my bachelor's in February, and I was a recipient of the Half Arnold grant, sorry, 2 years, and that helped me finish my degree. And so, yeah, I really appreciated that.
That's fantastic, Anna. You're a great example of how we want to people, especially that are further along in their careers, they're trying to get education. That's awesome. Would you mind if we reached out to you? Because we're constantly trying to collect stories so we can do a better job of telling people, hey, this is what right can look like.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, wonderful. We'll do that. I'll get your info from Amy or Sheila.
And a huge congratulations. I'm sure it was a game of perseverance.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Yes, it
Right.
was.
We're so proud of you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that.
Maria.
Hi, thank you for being here, Thomas family. The example that I was hoping you talk a little bit more about is the cranial helmets. That's the one I've been able to share with multiple families, 3 in particular, and I've been so grateful just by your social media posts are so easy to share, so I can put those in little groups. And then, just like when you get somebody writing back a note that says, oh my gosh, this actually worked, what a life changer. So yeah, please share about that so everyone here can go out and share that specific and unique support.
Yeah, thanks. As I go out to the bases and travel around, and by the way, Patrick, next month is my first Space Force base visit. We were going to go out. Actually, we were going to be leaving tomorrow. Nick Hague, first active duty member to launch as an active duty member of Space Force going up. Crew 9 got delayed about a month, so we're going to go out to Patrick later. But when I go out to the bases, of the different things that people tell me, one of the things I do get is a lot of appreciation for our EFNP programs, because they seem to be working pretty well. And one of the things I love about that is that it's identifying a very specific need, something TRICARE is not covering that they probably, frankly, should. Maybe they will eventually. And so I'll hit the cranial helmet in a minute, but I'll also say that if there's other things out there that are needs like that, those are the things we want to know about, and we want to be able to see where we can roll in and do our job and help on that. But, you know, we'll pay up to $3,500 for cranial helmets. And it takes very little to be able to get that. If all we need, matter of fact, B, why don't you jump in and kind of go through what an easy process looks like and what we need from people for the helmets.
So for the cranial helmet, you know, it's always been to us the fact that TRICARE sees a cranial helmet as a cosmetic repair to a child's skull. So although Air Force Aid Society typically does not step in front of what TRICARE should be providing, or what they look at not approving, we see that that is something that is very important to a child's development. And this is one that we're happy to step forward and help. Families run into almost $3,500 for these types of helmets to help their babies. So yeah, that's something that we don't have a problem just stepping forward. There's no budget that's required. So we need the prescription from the doctor and the estimate of the cost for the helmet. And so, yeah, if we get that, we're ready to rock and roll, move forward, and help the family with that helmet cost.
And the helmet's not based on financial need. It's just the fact that it's an expense to military families that we believe somebody should come alongside and cover.
Right. And reason why we don't ask for a budget. It's yeah, not required.
Yeah. Thanks, B.
We did have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one was, any chance that HeartLink or Parents Night Out might be picked up again and refunded?
Yeah, so there's a lot of background here, and man, we started when I was a squadron commander at Malmstrom, working with HeartLink, and we believe in those programs, and we are ready and willing to support. We want to support. As a matter of fact, I'm working with the budget guy for the Air Force, Major General Mike Greiner, to find a way, because the problem is not that we don't want to do it. The problem is, remember that policy change I told you where the family support centers, military family readiness centers can't write checks anymore? Well, now there has to be a financial mechanism to be able to get all of the funds to them. And the ways that we've offered or wanted to do it, AFPC, Air Force Personnel Center, which is the go-through, has not been able to do. So it's at my level now. I know there has to be a way around this, and we want to be able to do that. So yes, we plan on that. I also recognize HeartLink's a tough program sometimes. Sometimes, depending on when they're offered, how dynamic the military family readiness centers are, how energized people are. Sometimes the programs are super strong. Sometimes they really have problems getting people to attend. But if we can get them to attend on the bases, we want to support them. The child care issue, that's not an Air Force aid issue per se, because we are ready and willing to support those. What it is a Air Force availability of child care providers. There's a lot of child care programs we're ready and willing to fund and support, but there's not enough licensed providers on those bases. So like McCord, for instance, we went out and visited McCord around Memorial Day, and child care providers is one of and housing, one of their top concerns, and they just don't have the people to take advantage of the program. What we are doing, B and Chris McBride, our Chief Operating Officer, we're trying to start looking outside the box and figuring out non-traditional ways to be able to grant funds for child care without having to be dependent on licensed on-base care providers, because that's been the long pole in the tent. Okay, B, fix whatever I just screwed up and fill it in the gaps, please.
So Deb, I do see your question on the chat. I did want to say you also asked about Parents Night Out. So Parents Night Out is an Air Force program. The childcare for Air Force Aid Society would be either give parents a break
Yeah.
or childcare for PCS.
Yeah.
But yeah, your question, that is an Air Force program, not an AFAS program. As General Thomas mentioned, we are working very hard to see how we can bring heartening back. So don't fret, we're working really hard to work through it and make sure that that program comes back online for all of our spouses. So stand by on that one.
Hey, B, talk to me in the morning too, because I need to get back to General Griner. And I want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row because I think we can solve this one, but it's going to take a little bit of muscle to push it through.
Will do.
Thank you. What else, folks?
We have another one that Sarah answered in the chat, but for the benefit of the group, I'd love to ask it again. Are spouses eligible to apply for multiple years to the scholarship programs? And are foreign spouses eligible for the scholarships?
Sarah.
Absolutely. So our HAP Arnold grant is typically a 4-year grant that you reapply for each year. Since it is needs-based, we do require the FAFSA to be submitted each year. If you're in a 5-year program, we will award for up to 5 years, as long as you're in a 5-year program. For our B. Arnold spouse tuition program, we just opened it up this year to our part-time spouses. So we are looking at the best way to continue to support our part-time spouses as they're pursuing their degree. We are well aware that they will and should absolutely be able to apply multiple years. So we recognize that, and they are able to. We don't have any hard and fast rules at the moment with our B. Arnold program. But yep, pursuing a part-time degree, you'll also be eligible to apply for multiple years. You will need to reapply for each of these programs though. Then our foreign spouses, yep, you're absolutely able to apply for both programs. Like I said, for our HAP Arnold, you will need to complete a FAFSA. That typically isn't a problem. If you don't have a social security number, there's typically another ID that they can ask for and you can put in. So yeah, as long as you're married to an Air Force or Space Force member, you are absolutely eligible to apply for our HAP Arnold or B Arnold programs. And one thing I do want to touch on, since we were talking about childcare before, for our education childcare grant, that is it's not just for on-base care. If you have kids at off-base care, we will cover that $1,500 or $750 that'll go directly to the spouse, to the family. We don't send it to the base or the childcare center. So if you are using a babysitter, if you're doing after school care, if it's an off-base daycare, you are still eligible for our education childcare grant.
Hey, Sarah, that's a great point. I'm really glad you said that because this could be a potential, precursor of what we would try to do in other childcare areas, because our other childcare programs are almost completely dependent on base childcare. And to be able to provide direct grants with flexibility on how it's spent may be the way we need to go in the future, because our current model is just not working right now.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, we have a great test. We've been doing a great test for it since April. So happy to share with the larger group as we move on with it. I do also have a direct message I see in the chat asking if a spouse applies for the B. Arnold scholarship, are they also eligible to apply for the HAP Arnold grant another year? Absolutely. So let's say 1 year you're part-time and you're part-time. That's all you can handle for your undergraduate degree. That year you would be eligible for our B. Arnold scholarship. And let's say in the future, whether it's the following year or a couple years down the road, you're still pursuing your undergraduate degree and you're able to go full-time. Yep, you would absolutely be able to apply for the HAP Arnold grant. Obviously in the same year, it wouldn't work out for us. It's either you're full-time for the year, you're part-time for the year, just how our programs are run currently. But if it's different years where you'll be full-time versus part-time, you are absolutely, one does not exclude you from the other. If you've already applied for one year, and then you'll be full-time.
Hey, Sarah, what do you think their chances are of getting approved for a scholarship application if they put it in?
Oh, B. Arnold is, all we need is our spouses, our applicants to submit the required documentation. And like I said, for B. Arnold especially,
Yep.
we will approve almost anything. Because we want to get the word out. It's a newer program at headquarters. We want to support our spouses at the base level. For our HAP Arnold, man, so that's needs-based, obviously. So not everyone who applies will receive a HAP Arnold grant. Typically, if your FAFSA shows that you can pay, not typically, always, if your FAFSA shows that what you can pay towards your tuition is less than the actual tuition, you will receive a grant from us without question. If your FAFSA shows what you can pay towards tuition is higher, you still may receive a grant, because the way we do our calculations is we still reduce what FAFSA says you can pay by a certain amount, knowing that there are extenuating circumstances for each of our families as they're applying for school. So even if it's close, we still suggest you apply. And even if you don't get the grant, you can be eligible for the loan. If it's your child as an incoming freshman, they'd be eligible to apply for our merit or grit scholarships, because those are not needs-based. So we absolutely encourage everyone to apply. And I'd say it's upwards of 90%. As long as all the required documentation is there, that we approve for scholarship or grant.
So what if Dinah, just hypothetically, a Air Force spouse of now a retired member, decides she wants to become an interior designer and wants to go to school part-time for interior design? Does that work?
Absolutely. Are you interested? I can help you get through the application process.
I think
Yep.
this is the thing that still amazes me about my husband's job, because when we first started this whole realm, because I've grown immensely in what I've learned about the Air Force Aid Society in the last year, and I'm like, so really, you just have money? You're just trying to give away money? And he's like, yeah, we're just gonna try to give away money.
To the right places.
To the right places,
Yeah.
absolutely.
To help people.
Yeah.
And General Thomas, that's a good point. Our B. Arnold is not a needs-based grant. It is truly in support for undergraduate part-time degrees and certifications, to help with the job search. And really this came about as we know our spouses are moving around the country and may be having to look for jobs over and over again. And they may be changing careers. Right. They may need a new license for a new state. So that's really where we're coming from with our B. Arnold program.
Yeah, and we've been working, in DoD for years with reciprocity on licenses, helping people get the certifications, and this just comes alongside that greater DoD effort.
That's wonderful. We have time for one more question tonight, which was, do any of these grants or scholarships apply for graduate programs?
Not currently. We are undergraduate at the moment.
Except Columbia Southern.
Except Columbia Southern. Thank you, General Thomas. You're more on top of it than I am for that one. That's right.
Blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, Sarah.
Yeah, so Columbia Southern, that is anything from an associate's degree up through a doctorate, actually, you're eligible to apply. For our B. Arnold and our HAP Arnold, those are both just for undergraduate, associate degrees, and certification programs. Something we're definitely willing to listen to our spouses on. And as General Thomas said earlier, funding is probably what currently holds us back a bit on expanding to graduate programs. But we are very happy to hear input from our Air Force and Space Force spouses when it comes to degrees that they are interested in grants and scholarships for.
Amy, Sheila, if I can just end with just two things. One, we want your feedback. We want to be able to better and more effectively, as each day passes, serve our Space Force and our Air Force families better. The second thing is thank you.
Mhm.
As spouses serving in our military, I cannot tell you how grateful Don and I are because we don't do this alone as service members, and our families are our backbone. And the things that I see spouses groups like this doing and what it brings to our national security, what it brings to our quality of life, what it brings to our entire service culture can't be underestimated. So huge from the bottom of our heart. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, especially both of you joining us on this special Military Marriage Day. We appreciate your time. Maybe not the best place to spend a date night, but that's okay. We appreciate your time.
Very romantic.